here's the point of this presentation, is that these advances in nutritional science enable us to not have a heart attack, not have a stroke, not get demented, and not get cancer, and be healthy all the way to 100 years old. That opportunity is available to you right now. Do you want that? Of course, right? These diseases that plague Americans are not primarily genetic, and they're not the inevitable consequence of aging. They're the result of a diet style that's not designed for the human species. When we eat the diet we're designed to be eating, we don't get sick. It's as simple as that. So how many of you are going to do what it takes not to have a heart attack or a stroke? Raise your hand. Telling the truth? Well, by the end of this lecture, you'll know what it takes, and we'll ask that again. And I hope this looks, because I don't know, you're just all raising your hand. I hope so. Because what it takes, you have to have a normal blood pressure without medications. You have to have a normal body weight. You have to have a normal cholesterol without medications, normal glucose parameters without medications. The more drugs you're taking to control these problems, the higher the risk you're at. So you have to be well without medications. That's what you have. So it takes work, and it takes eating properly to achieve that. We're going to go over that today, okay? Because it's really destroying our communities across America. It's tragic, right? So raise your hand before we get started. I'm going to get started in a minute. Raise your hand if you've been, either yourself or somebody in your family has been stabbed by a knife in your torso. Raise your hand. Oh, one person. One person? No. One. Okay, raise your hand if you or your family member has been shot by a bullet. Raise your hand. Like 5 people out of 500. Okay, now raise your hand if somebody in your family has ever had a heart attack or a stroke or cancer diagnosis. Oh my goodness. That is some dangerous neighborhood. You've got to get out of there. Get out of that neighborhood. And you're laughing, but it's serious. Because it's ever so more tragic, because it's needless suffering and needless premature deaths. And the most growing industry in America is putting people in nursing homes from strokes under the age of 60 now. So and more people becoming demented at younger ages, and everybody is talking about how food causes heart attacks and strokes, and even some people talking about how that causes cancer. But who's talking about the fact that this fast food environment causing mental illness and suicides and depression and anger and violence? Who's discussing that? It's as if it destroys your body and not your brain. It destroys your brain with your body, leads to incredible problems in our society. All right, so enough. Let's get started, okay? You ready to get started? So my purpose tonight is so you understand this in depth, so you can articulate it and explain it to other people. So you become that ray of light. So you get those superpowers. And you know what superpowers I'm talking about? You know, right? Yeah, well, yeah, but I want to give you superpowers, not the food, the superpowers. No, what I'm saying right now is, what good are superpowers to be able to bend steel with your bare hands, fly through the air, or shoot out rays of burning light out of your eyes to melt and burn buildings down, if there's no aliens invading us from other planets, there's no other super beings are fighting us? We don't need those superpowers. The superpowers we need is the ability to heal people, to get people well, to stop all the suffering, to radiate kindness and love and knowledge, to have our world come together as a community and helping each other and not have people suffering needlessly. That's the superpowers we need. Right? And that's the superpowers I want you to have. Because if you don't take care of your own health, then you don't have those powers. If you're not an example of good health, you're not going to be respected to be able to affect other people positively. And if you're not taking care of your health, then you're not being kind and loving to your community or to your family. If you're going to ruin your body, then these people are going to take care of you. Your children are going to be responsible for taking care of you, and when they can't live their life, they have to be caring for a sick person because you didn't take care of your body. Do you follow what I'm saying right now? Dragging you around to doctors and to surgeries and to procedures and to nursing homes and it's all just crazy. All right, I got to start this lecture. I'll be here all night. You guys ready to get started? Okay, here we go. So we're starting out with some basics. The basics are that food gives us nutrients. And there are 2 types of nutrients, macronutrients and micronutrients. Right? The word macro means big, And the macronutrients contain calories, fat, carbohydrate, and protein. Now, the micronutrients don't contain calories. Those are vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals. And here's the thing. Americans are killing themselves because they're eating too many macronutrients. They eat too much fat, too much carbohydrate, and too much protein. The more calories you eat in your life, the shorter your lifespan. They say the shorter your waistline, the longer your lifeline. The bigger your waistline, the shorter your lifeline. You got that? Pretty straightforward. Now, so here's what I'm saying is the first, if you know what macronutrients and micronutrients are, because the micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, phytochemicals. Every strawberry has 700 different phytochemicals in it. Every piece of broccoli has 1,000 different phytochemicals. We're talking about these are not optional. They're necessary, and our immune system is supposed to be built and functioning on thousands of different nutrients in natural food, colorful foods. And the first principle of a Nutritarian diet, the most proven methodology to slow aging and extend human lifespan is this. So this is what you have to remember and memorize. It's moderate caloric restriction in an environment of micronutrient excellence. Now, I'll explain that. I'll say it again. But that you have to memorize. And you can say it in your own words. You don't have to use that exact words, but you have to understand that the only proven methodology reproduced in every species of animals ever tested, and humans, and every study ever done to slow aging, to have you live a longer time and not get these diseases, is moderate caloric restriction in an environment of micronutrient excellence. Do you have that? Because the American diet, everybody in America is ubiquitously micronutrient deficient. And why are they micronutrient deficient? They don't eat enough vegetables, because vegetables are the most micronutrients. If you're not eating vegetables, you're micronutrient and phytochemical deficient, especially green vegetables. So this says the same thing I just told you. This equation says H equals N over C. That means that your healthy life expectancy, how long you're going to live, and the quality of your life in your later years is proportional to the nutrient per calorie density of your diet all through life. That means if you eat the foods that give you more micronutrients per caloric buck, you live a long life with no disease and you live longer. And if you do the opposite, and if you keep eating calories that don't have nutrients associated with them, then you shorten your lifespan with every bite. Did you follow that? So if you want to shorten your lifespan, keep eating bagels and cookies and maple syrup and all the, cheeses and breakfast cereals and pasta and cookies and, and soft drinks and candy and whatever you're eating, pizza, So that's the first principle of the Nutritarian diet. You guys got that? All right. Because here's the thing, is that when you take in a little less calories than you need, it slows down your metabolic rate so you age slower. You don't produce as many free radicals. Your body can fix broken DNA cross-links. It inhibits it inhibits breakage and problems that develop in the cells where toxins build up and eventually the cellular structure, the DNA breaks down. And that happens just from eating too much food. And your body has the ability to undo the damage when you undereat a little bit. Let me give you an example. Let's say I had a buffet. I had them put together, the organizers of this meeting, put together a buffet right in the front of the room. So before you come to hear me speak, you're going to take your plates and fill up the buffet. Except on this side of the room, as you're waiting in line to fill your plate with food from the buffet, I'm going to hand you an apple as you are walking up to fill your plate. And as you eat that 65-calorie apple, the scientists are going to weigh what you put on your plate and calculate how much food you eat. And they're going to figure out on the average that because you had that apple, as you got up to get food, you will generally eat 65 calories less because the body registered the 65 calories in the apple because of the fiber, the water content, the nutrients, it signals to the brain. Your body was turned down, your appestat was turned down by 65 calories that were in that apple, so you ate 65 calories less. You got that? Yes. Okay. Now, on this side of the room, I didn't give you an apple. I gave you a tablespoon of olive oil at 120 calories per tablespoon, and then we had you come up and fill your plates at the buffet. But because the olive oil has no fiber and no water content, no bulk and no significant nutrient load, and no occupying space, and you don't have to chew anything, it doesn't turn down the appestat, So when the scientists calculated how much foods you ate on your plate, they found out that you did not reduce your caloric intake from the meal from the 120 calories from the olive oil. You actually just ate 120 calories extra. You got that? Now, what if instead of giving you the tablespoon of olive oil as you were coming up to get your plates, what if I took the olive oil and I mixed it in with the food, in with the salad, in with the vegetable dish, in with the pasta, whatever, just mixed it in the vegetables. So you didn't even know you were getting the extra 120 calories a tablespoon. I just got an extra tablespoon of olive oil, 120 calories, mixed it in, so that's how much extra calories you get on your plate. Then what would happen? Would you just take 120 calories extra, like the people in line, right? No, it's not right. Because when you put oil in the food, it ratchets up the appestat and makes you want to eat more calories. So now you would have had the 120 calories plus from the olive oil, and on the average, you'd have consumed 100 calories more food, so you would have eaten 220 extra calories compared to the group that just had the apple. You follow that now? You see, because when you eat an oil, and there's no fiber, and no bulk, and no water content, and the oil, you see, because there's nothing to slow its absorption into the bloodstream, it enters the bloodstream so rapidly that your body can't burn it for energy. It has to store it as fat. So when 220 calories enter the bloodstream within 5 minutes, that's like 30 calories a minute. The body can't burn that off. It has to store it. They say from the lips to the hips, 5 minutes flat. And we learned in medical school, we learned with an electron microscope, you'd actually see what kind of fat that was that just got stored on there. Was that like pig fat, or was that Swiss cheese, or was that olive oil? You could see the structure because it's absorbed. It doesn't even change. And the body just sucks it in and puts it right away. You see, instead of the olive oil, instead of the walnut oil, instead of the sesame oil, if you had a sesame seed instead of the sesame oil, walnuts instead of the walnut oil, right? Pecans instead of the pecan oil. If you had the whole nut or seed, or horse of a different color, because now you have the fats associated with fibers and sterols and stanols that prevent the fat from coming in rapidly. The fat gets absorbed about 2 calories a minute, not 20 or 30 calories a minute. And when the fat's coming in that slowly, the body preferentially burns it for energy, burns it off, doesn't store it. But not only that, the sterols and stanols, the fibers in the nuts and seeds, are such powerful fat magnets that they carry some of those calories out into the toilet bowl. So you increase stool fat. But they're such powerful fat magnets in those nuts and seeds that they actually sucked fat out of the bloodstream into the digestive tract. Because nutrients move both ways, from the digestive tract into the bloodstream, from the bloodstream into the digestive tract. So it actually preferentially pulls out the bad fats, like saturated fat, like LDL, like oxidized LDL. So now the stool has more fat in it, but it wasn't even the fat that was originally in the nut and seed. It's the fat that was the bad stuff in your body. It's sucking out. That's how nuts and seeds lower cholesterol. So, and you get satiated from them. So you want to eat less, not more, because just remember, if some of those fat calories in the nuts and seeds, that it's 35 calories a tablespoon, a heaping tablespoon instead of 120, but out of those 35 calories, some of those calories are not biologically accessible to the body because the fibers held onto them so tight, they pulled them into the toilet bowl. So you felt like you ate the 35 calories. Your appestat was turned down by those 35 calories, but now you didn't really get 35 calories. You only got 25. So you automatically moderately caloric restricted because your body was filled, but you didn't take as many calories as you thought. Did you follow that? So if I say sesame oil, you guys say, makes you fat. If I say sesame seeds, you guys say, makes you thin, right? Pistachios, makes you thin. Pistachio oil. Right, you got it, you're getting it. Motor oil. I quit that stuff a long time ago. I better get back to this lecture. We'll never be here all night. So the standard American diet is designed with 54% of calories, more than half of processed foods that, like pasta, bread, salad oil, mayonnaise, donuts, cookies, crackers, rice cakes, breakfast bars, chips, soft drinks, and candy, and all kinds of crap that doesn't contain any micronutrients. It's just calories, empty calories that shorten lifespan and prevent and create dementia and cancer. And then we eat about a third of our diet from animal products. And animal products contain a lot of macronutrients. They're rich in protein. They're calorically concentrated, but they do not have a significant micronutrient load. They do not contain a significant amount of vitamins and minerals, and no antioxidants and no phytochemicals. It says we're eating 10% of calories of produce, but that's really not true because they count white potato products like French fries and mashed potatoes and ketchup. That's like mostly mashed potatoes and French fries and ketchup in that 10%. It's mostly about 5% of produce Americans generally eat. And to have adequate health, your diet has to be at least 90% of calories from produce. That's it. Not 5%, 90%. If that's not it, then you're going to get sick. We're a primate. The primates have to eat to prevent good health. Now, this diet couldn't be better designed to create cancer, and that's why I say it's been designed by ISIS. You know, it's funny because I said on PBS, on my television show, I said that, so you can't blame me for this. I said that diet's been designed by Al-Qaeda, I said on television a few years ago. And they took it out. They cut it out of the show. And it has me saying on television, that diet's been designed by Darth Vader. I just want you to make sure that was not my joke. I didn't really say that. That's the magic of television. To figure out why I couldn't say Al-Qaeda on television, I have no idea. But that's what they had me say. What's that? I don't know why. I didn't know they were that politically powerful as a lobbyist in this country. Anyway, getting back to this idea of vegetables, if the race to win the most nutrients per calorie was a 20-mile race, vegetables would be 19 miles ahead of everybody else at the end of the race. Vegetables, especially green vegetables, because cancer occurs because of the gradual buildup of methylation defects on the DNA. Like in the Fiji Islands, they smoke like fiends, and they don't have much lung cancer because they eat a lot of green vegetables. The Hawaiian Islanders, the same Polynesian genetic background, they smoke a lot more, but they don't eat as much green, so they have much higher rates of lung cancer in Hawaii than in Fiji, even though they have 3 times as much smokers. Did you follow that? What I'm saying here is we do studies and we find that as we give people green vegetables, we see in their diet less methylation defects, and we actually see it occurring as they're eating green vegetables over the month. The methylation defects go down. We stop the accumulation of damage that's going to eventually create cancer. And of course, we see the opposite is true, is that people with not eating green vegetables, we always see more accumulation of methylation defects. If you want to get cancer, all you do is stop eating green vegetables. Very, very simple. It's not complicated. You know what? I can ask you a simple question. I'm sure you'll know the answer. What is the food that is most powerfully linked with protection of the brain against dementia in humans? The answer is pretty close. Dark green vegetables. Right, leafy the most. Dark green leafy vegetables the most for protection against dementia. Let me ask you guys a question. It's a tough question. What is the food that has the most power and the most scientific association in the scientific literature that shows protection against breast and prostate cancer? Right, it's the same question, same answer. What about heart attacks and strokes? Green leaf, same thing. What is a gorilla? Chimp, what are these? If you went down to the Central America or Midland Africa, and you followed around other primates, gorillas or chimpanzees, and you followed them and just decided to eat whatever they ate, you'd do pretty well. What do they mostly eat? Green vegetables mostly. If you don't like green vegetables, then you're just going to have to live close to a hospital, really close. That was really a stupid joke, but let me tell you something before I go on with those stupid jokes, is that laughing and smiling also makes you live longer. It's really good for the body. And you know what? The joke does not have to be funny. You just laugh anyway. Whatever I say, just laugh. I'm extending your life. The stupidest joke. So a review of these largest amount of studies, this is a review of 206 studies on the subject, show raw vegetables had the most consistent and powerful association with prevention of cancers of all types. That's pretty easy to remember, isn't it? That's why my mantra that I tell people, get out a card, get a magic marker, you know, an index card, write on it, big print, the salad is the main dish. And you have a big salad at least once a day as part of one of your main meals. And you put some of these things on the salad that we know have powerful anti-cancer effects. So what are some of those things you would put on the salad to magnify its anti-cancer potential? Right, that's right, you would put some type of cruciferous vegetable on top. Like you'd put like a cruciferous vegetable, could be kale, it could be collard greens, it could be bok choy, it could be arugula, it could be watercress, it could be shredded cabbage, it could be Chinese cabbage, it could be Savoy cabbage, it could be some kind of cruciferous green you would put in mix with the lettuce, right? Because it increases the anti-cancer effects. Another thing you might put in the salad to increase the anti-cancer effects. No, somebody said nuts and seeds. Okay, right, yes, those are, but the broccoli is a cruciferous vegetable. That's what we already covered that one. No, here's the answer. Here's the answer I'm looking for. Onion or scallion. Onion or scallion on that salad, because people underestimate how even a little bit of onion and scallion has such a powerful protective effect against cancer, and it so powerfully induces the growth of the favorable microbacteria in your digestive tract. We're going to talk about that in a minute. We're going to talk about the microbiome in a minute. But first thing we're knowing is that we're putting on salad, and somebody said nuts and seeds. Yes, you want your dressing you want to have a little bit of nuts and seeds with your salad, maybe in your dressing. Why is that? Why is that the case? What'd you say? No. No, you didn't say, nobody said, what? Absorption of what? Yes, that's the right answer. This lady here had the right answer. She said that it increases the absorption of the vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals. The anti-cancer potential from the vegetables are enhanced because you absorb 10 times more of the phytochemicals when there's some nuts and seeds with the same meal. That's why you don't want to eat your nuts and seeds mostly with your fruit meal. If you're having some fruit in the morning or some oatmeal, you can put some flax seeds and some nuts and seeds, but you want to save some of your nuts and seeds to eat mostly with the meals that have the most vegetables in them. You don't want to snack on them, eat them alone. You want to save them to eat them with the meal because they facilitate the absorption of those fat-soluble phytochemicals and the anti-cancer benefits. It enhances the anti-cancer benefits. Did you understand that? So yeah, you other guys gave good things to put on a salad, but those I wanted you to make sure you include those most important things. Was obviously the green, a little green cruciferous or cabbage, and a little onion or scallion, because vegetables don't just protect cancer. They are the most important nutrients and foods that protect the lining of the blood vessels to prevent plaque from sticking on the blood vessel wall. They activate the antioxidant response element in all cells, but especially in the heart, in the endothelium and the blood vessels, preventing plaque from building up. So it says the meta-analysis, that word meta-analysis means that a lot of studies added up to put in so you get the most power, most scientific power, that the more vegetable portions per day increase, then the intravascular inflammation decreases, elasticity and function improves, reducing heart attacks and stroke risk. A vegetable-based diet essentially wipes out the possibility of having heart disease and stroke. And now, what I did is I took some foods and I scored them based on 36 different nutritional parameters that the government keeps track of. I used to call it the Andy scores, but now I'm putting out an app that's coming out next month. And the app is like a phone app where you can actually put down, you ate a cup of kale, I had a quarter cup of mushroom, I had a little red onion. Whatever it is you put in the app, it'll give you a score so you can see how many points you got to the end of the day, like a little game. It's great for kids. And you know why I'm making this app? Because a lot of coaches and athletic trainers working for colleges and universities, they're finding that the athletes perform better, and they're doing studies on how many points of high-nutrient foods they eat. And the athletes are going, this is like a no-brainer. I'm just like eating more food and just I get 500 points in my diet, and 500 points I can perform better, I can run faster, I can not get tired, and they're finding that they can perform much better. So we're making, so these are some scores. So it says like a medium tomato is 60 points, a cup of kale is 112, but if you make 2 cups of kale, you get 224 points, right? You only got to, and we could put 500 might give you a great score, like you're smart, 750 might give you brilliant, and then if you're 1,000, you're a genius. You know what I mean? So, and you can have your coach or somebody could score the app. You could lower it and you could lower it for a child, or keep, you can adjust it because maybe you don't want to make it so hard at first. So it's what, but I'm just showing you these scores because it motivates people to eat more of the high nutrient foods, because the more your diet is nutrient dense, the more you're going to slow that aging process, and we want to make sure this just motivates people to make better food choices. You know what it is? Because these high volume foods, and we're talking about vegetables and melons and cherries and strawberries and and oranges and Brussels sprouts and string beans and eggplant, tomatoes and peppers and onions and cauliflower, whatever it is we're eating, these foods are very low in calories. They're all less than 100 calories a pound, and some of them are closer to 50 calories a pound. If I was traveling in the woods with the gorillas, like Tarzan, swinging on the vines, I got to have a lot of strength in my muscles to swing on those vines and climb those trees like the monkeys and the gorillas, right? But if I'm eating all those green vegetables, it's less than 50 calories a pound. How many green vegetables do I have to eat to get my caloric needs met? I think like 30 pounds of vegetables. I eat a lot of food, because otherwise you get too thin. Because these foods are it's so easy to be thin. You just eat more low-calorie food. As a matter of fact, it will be hard for me to maintain my weight to get too thin. If you're overweight and you're eating the wrong type of food, you're in the wrong neighborhood. Eat more low-nutrient food, because you can't get more than 400 calories into your stomach when you're eating right. It's impossible to be overweight if you're eating mostly vegetables and fruits. Impossible. And that's how I know, with many years of scientific contemplation and thought, I finally figured out that Skipper never lived on that island. I'm so glad you guys are old enough to get that. Thank you. And the GBOMBS acronym, how many of you heard of GBOMBS? Great, like half of you did. So what does they stand for? Let's do it together. Let's do it as like a whole team, okay? You ready? Here we go. G is greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. See how coordinated I am with the clicker? That was a joke. That's all right. You don't have to laugh at every joke. What does this mean? What does GBOMBS mean? What's the purpose of this? Does anybody know? What? That's pretty close. This lady said to remind us what's good to eat. Yes, to remind you of foods you should be trying to consume every day, because these are the foods with the most scientific documentation to prevent later life cancer. If we take any one of those foods individually and look at the data, just pick one. Pick one. Beans. Okay, in the nurses' study, beans were found to be the food that had the most protection against breast cancer compared to any other food. That women who ate them on a regular basis had like half the amount of breast cancer as women who did not eat them. You pick a food. One of those, GBOMBS. Mushrooms. A study on Asian women showed that women who ate 10 grams of mushrooms a day, the size of your thumb, had a 64% lower risk of breast cancer compared to women who didn't have mushrooms. We're talking about these are each individual superfoods. Every one of these foods reduces the risk of cancer by something like 50 or 70% if you include it in your diet. Just from the one food, and not all the foods, but what if we put together a dietary portfolio that included all the anti-cancer foods in the right way of preparing them and the right dosaging to get full benefit against cancer, and we had the diet include all of them? Then what would happen? We don't see anybody getting cancer. Incredibly powerful. Actually, we're doing a study on that right now in Flagstaff. Well, it's all Americans could join, but I have a Nutritarian research office at Northern Arizona University. I'm on faculty there. We have a research office where we're studying women. We're trying to recruit 10,000 women. We have about 3,000, I think, recruited now, where they've pledged to eat a diet for the rest of their life that includes GBOMBS, and eat really healthy the rest of their life. We're tracking, and some of them had cancer, and watching cancers reverse. Early stage cancers go away, and people who never get cancer will never get it. We're going to track exactly the data from people using the full portfolio of the GBOMBS. So you know what GBOMBS are now? The point is they are foods that have demonstrated in scientific studies to be significantly protective against cancer. Got it? Pretty simple. It's not the basis of the first principle of the Nutritarian diet. What's the first principle of the Nutritarian diet? What is it? Something you're saying like about it's nutrients, eating more nutrients per calorie is what you're saying. Right. Well, hold it. This gentleman over here has said something. What did you say? Yes, keep going. He did it. He said, I'll repeat what he said. He said moderate caloric restriction with a ton of nutrients. I didn't use the word ton. He got the idea. He put it in his own words. Good job. And then you add the GBOMBS to that, and you got magic happens, right? But there's something else, the second principle, besides you got the first principle down. I think most of you can repeat that first principle. Could you now? Moderate caloric restriction in an environment of micronutrient excellence. You guys could get that. But here's the second principle. Your diet has to be hormonally favorable. You know what that means is certain hormones accelerate your death if they're too high in your bloodstream. And we're talking about hormones like estrogen and insulin and IGF-1. In other words, if your estrogen is running high, it increases risk of breast cancer, and estrogen causes and increases risk of prostate cancer. And what cells produce estrogen in the body? The fat cells, right. It's not just from the ovary, it's from the fat cells. And the heavier you are, the more excess estrogen you're going to produce. Unnatural amounts of estrogen are going to be produced, increased risk of cancer. And if you have excess fat cells on your body, the fat cells make you insulin resistant because fat cells block the uptake of insulin, so the pancreas has to secrete a lot of extra insulin for everything you ate. So if I do weigh about a little under 150 pounds. So what if I put 10 pounds of fat on my body? At this body weight, my body secretes about 10 units of insulin a day. At this body weight. What if I didn't weigh 150 pounds? Because my body fat is about 10% body fat. Now, what if I weighed 160 pounds and the extra 10 pounds was all body fat? Now, my body wouldn't need 10 units of insulin a day. It might need 15 units of insulin a day. But what if I weighed 170 pounds? My body might need 25 units of insulin a day because the fat would block the uptake of the working of the insulin. But if I weighed 180 pounds or 190 pounds or 200 pounds, my body might require 100 units of insulin a day. 100 units, not 10 units a day. 10 times as much insulin because the fat blocked the uptake. So now when I had that oatmeal or that mango in the morning, instead of needing 1 or 2 units, I need 20 units for that mango or oatmeal because my fat on the body. And insulin promotes cellular replication, promotes fat storage, and promotes cancer. Insulin accelerates aging of the brain. It speeds up did I say angiogenesis promoting? Did I say that? Because you know what angiogenesis is, right? Isn't it the second book of the Bible? The word angio means blood vessels. Genesis means to make new, so it stimulates the growth of new blood vessels. So when you get cancer sends out, or abnormal tumor cells send out angiogenesis promoters that say to the body, I need blood, I need nutrients. Grow new blood vessels to feed me so I can grow and kill you. Cells go haywire and go crazy, and they start to ask the bloodstream for more nutrients so they can overgrow. And that's one of the hallmarks of cancer. And fat cells secrete angiogenesis promoters because fat's like a tumor. Fat cells can only grow with new blood vessel growth. They're live tissue, living tissue. Without new blood vessels to fuel the fat, it can't grow. And insulin is an angiogenesis promoter. And you know what mushrooms are? They're angiogenesis inhibitors, very powerful angiogenesis inhibitors. Mushrooms say, no way, Jose, I'm not letting you put fat on your body. The mushrooms say, no way, Jose, I'm not letting you get cancer or allow cancer to grow. And they're bilingual. They say it in Spanish, no way, Jose. Like that. And so we're talking about hormones like estrogen, insulin, IGF-1. And IGF-1 is called insulin-like growth factor 1. It's called insulin-like because it's shaped like insulin. It's a growth hormone like insulin is. It promotes angiogenesis like insulin does, but it also promotes growth in general. It's a hormone that accelerates growth. It's there when you have a little baby. to help them grow? And what if you have excess, too much IGF-1 circulating when you already reached your full growth when you're an adult? It doesn't make you grow anymore. You stop growing. It makes you grow out. It makes you grow things that shouldn't be growing in your body, inside your body, like an alien. So do you know what the word glycemic load means? The higher the glycemic load, the more insulin the body needs to produce. And excess insulin is a bad thing. So the word glycemic load means not just how much glucose enters the bloodstream in response to that food, but how fast the glucose enters the bloodstream. The faster the glucose rushes into the bloodstream, the higher the glycemic load of that food, the more insulin that's needed to be produced. For example, there are foods like, let's take low glycemic foods. Let's, for example, compare some white bread or a bagel to a bean. Now, 200 calories of white bread enters the bloodstream in 8 minutes. That's 200 divided by 8, right? That's 30 calories a minute. But the 200 calories of beans enter the bloodstream little by little over 3.5 hours. That's like 100, so now you're only getting like 2 or 3 calories a minute. You don't need much insulin production when you ate a bean because the calories are coming in so slow because the carbohydrate in bean are very slow digestible starches. And then they're full of resistant starches, which means the carbohydrates are resistant to enzymatic degradation when you eat a bean. Do you know what? I know that's a big word. I said resistant to enzymatic degradation. What I meant here was that these bean carbohydrates can't be broken down by the body. So instead, they get fermented by bacteria. And the bacteria change them from carbohydrate into fat. But the time the beans can't be digested, and the time the bacteria ferment them and turn the carbohydrate into fat, they've passed the place in the digestive tract where they can be absorbed. They've already hit in the distal part of the small intestines and the proximal portion of the large intestines, or the colon. They've gotten so far down that 90% of those fats are lost into the toilet bowl. Must be meeting the nuts, the nut fats in there. Having a good time together. More fat in the toilet bowl means less fat on you. What did I just tell you? I just told you that all the calories in beans are not biologically accessible to the body, just like the nuts. So when the bean says 200 calories a cup, and your body gets the sensation it ate 200 calories, it shut the appestat down by 200 calories. You don't want to eat more food because the beans filled you up and made you feel like you had all those calories. But now all those calories aren't coming in. Only 150 calories are coming in, but you stopped eating like you ate 200, 100 calories. So it just naturally, without any effort, you just moderately caloric restricted because you ate beans as your source of carbohydrate, because you ate nuts as your source of fat. Are you following this? Actually, there are 4 particular foods that thicken the microbiome to the point that it creates a biofilm over the villi of healthy bacteria. Because when you eat beans regularly and the bacteria build up to digest the resistant starch in beans, it means that beans are a fuel that encourage the growth of these favorable bacteria. And these favorable bacteria that thicken the microbiome now reduce the absorption of glucose from the digestive tract into the bloodstream of anything you eat. So now when you have that mango or oatmeal in the morning, the moderate glycemic oatmeal and mango is now low glycemic because I regularly eat beans and my microbiome has been thickened. The biofilm over the villi have been thickened, so it lowers the glycemic effect of everything I eat, means less insulin, means less body fat. Did you follow that? So beans reduce body fat in more than one way. Slow absorption, right? The right microbiome, the fact that some of their carbohydrates are lost, they contain slowly digestible carbohydrates. So we're looking to have most of our carbohydrate need be met by things that don't fuel the production of insulin. Because the more it fuels the production of insulin, the more heart disease, the more diabetes, the more cancer, the more gallbladder disease, and of course, brain destruction and dementia. We want to avoid the high level of insulin. A couple of examples are, for example, women who ate more white rice have increased diabetes risk. More white rice means, and of course, replacing white rice with brown rice or other whole grains decreases diabetes risk. That's right, but I don't recommend, somebody just, I don't know who it was, must have been a plant. He said, what about arsenic? Because I don't recommend brown rice anymore in people's diets. There's a lot of other grains you could eat instead of brown rice. You have quinoa, camu, teff, all these different other great grains. You don't have to eat brown rice because brown rice is contaminated with arsenic. Because they use the arsenic-contaminated chicken manure to fuel the rice paddies, and the brown rice grown in America, even the organic brown rice, or the brown rice grown in China, it's all contaminated with arsenic. If you want to eat brown rice that's not contaminated, you have to buy it from the special company who they knock it off the rice plant with sticks, and with canoes growing wild in the marshes of northern Minnesota and southern Canada. You can buy wild rice, really true, but it's much more expensive, and most people don't have access to it. White rice now is too contaminated. So white rice and breast cancer, because more insulin means more cancer, right? And the more rice in your diet, here's a study of Korean women. For every 100 grams extra they ate, breast cancer went up 19%. Wild or brown rice decreased it, the same thing. High glycemic foods associated with breast cancer in many studies, especially in overweight women, because if you're overweight, then whatever high glycemic food you're eating, it magnifies the amount of insulin that needs to be produced. And the insulin is that's doing most of the damage. You following that now? It's pretty clear and straightforward, right? Meta-analysis of many studies, higher GI means more cancer. The whiter the bread, sooner you're dead, of course. Don't trust things that are too white. Cocaine, white bread, smoking, whatever those things are. So an example of high glycemic carbohydrates are things like white potato and white rice and pasta, and chocolate cake is white. They just put cocoa powder in it. It's just fake tan. Then you have the medium glycemic load foods like corn and sweet potato and grapes and oats and whole grains, and then mangoes and tropical fruits. Now we have very low glycemic load foods like melons and citrus fruits and strawberries and berries and beans and peas and apples and lentils and green vegetables and nuts and seeds, and these are all super low glycemic load food. And how do we turn a moderate glycemic load food into a low glycemic load food? Yeah, we thicken the microbiome. So here's what we do. There's four foods that help thicken the microbiome to slow the glycemic rush of the bloodstream when you eat a medium glycemic load foods. And these foods are 2 raw and 2 cooked. The 2 raw ones are, I'll bet you can guess them. Yeah, because I told you to put them on your salad already. The 2 raw foods are the green cruciferous vegetables and either onion or scallion or leek. The 2 raw foods are the raw onion family called the allium family, and the 2 cooked foods are beans and mushrooms. Mushrooms are better cooked, even cooking for a minute in a wok or something, a water wok or a vegetable broth or something, a tomato sauce, because mushrooms have a mild carcinogen called agarotine that just blows off with like a minute of cooking. And you don't lose the anti-cancer effects of the mushrooms when they're cooked. But you will lose some of the anti-cancer effects of the onion and the green vegetables if you cook them. Did you follow that? You don't lose the anti-cancer effect of the tomato if you cook it, but you will lose the anti-cancer effect of the raw green vegetable and the onion if you cook it. Okay, so I think you're getting a good understanding of this glycemic thing. And this slide puts together, it shows you some carbohydrates on a hierarchical scale of quality from the bottom, which has lower nutrient density. Remember you said about the foods picking with a higher micronutrient density a few minutes ago? Well, the ones at the bottom have a lower micronutrient density. It's beans that have the most micronutrients. It's beans that have the most fiber. It's beans that have most inositol pentakis phosphate that protects breast cancer, those phytochemicals. And you know that's powerfully protective against breast cancer because it's 26 letters long, inositol pentakis phosphate. But beans have the most resistant starch. You see that black beans, red kidney beans, azuki beans, peas, split peas, lentils, the combination of fiber and resistant starches and slowly digestible starches and nutrients are super high in those foods. They make you feel full. They fill you up. But you did not overconsume calories in the process. Right? There's that word, inositol pentakis phosphate. You can count it up, 26 letters. It doesn't let tumors grow. 8% death reduction for each 2 tablespoons of beans eaten a day. I guess that means if you eat enough, you live forever. Okay, the other hormone we're talking about here is IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1. right? And what raises the IGF-1 into unfavorable ranges, too high levels? The more animal products you eat, the more meat you eat. Because IGF-1 extends, lower levels extends lifespan, slows the aging process. And higher levels are promoted by meat and dairy products, but plant proteins don't raise IGF-1. So what I'm telling you is that beans contain a lot of protein, actually more protein than we thought, than even I thought. Because even though it says that even though most beans contain between 25 and 33% of calories from protein, I just told you today that some of their carbohydrate calories are lost in the toilet bowl, aren't biologically accessible. That means their actually percent of calories from protein as a percent of total calories that come into the bloodstream is even greater than the 25 or 30%. Did you follow that? They're high protein foods. Green vegetables are like 40% protein, more than hamburgers. So if green vegetables have more protein than hamburgers and protein drives IGF-1, how come eating beans and greens and hemp seeds and all these high protein sunflower seeds, how come they don't drive IGF-1 into unfavorable levels and to increase risk of cancer like animal proteins do? What's the difference between the plant proteins and the animal proteins that drive cancer? Phytonutrients? Yes and no. Well, don't remember we learned in grade school that the animal proteins are favorable because they're biologically complete, they're more biologically complete? They enter the bloodstream rapidly in a biologically complete form. The body instantly reacts with producing growth hormone. The plant proteins are not biologically complete. As they enter the bloodstream, it takes time for them to become biologically complete, and the body can biologically complete them little by little as it needs to produce the amount of hormone it needs without overshooting the amount. Well, you eat animal products, because we can just absorb more bacteria from the gut to biologically complete the protein. We absorb some of the lining, the epithelial lining of the villi lining of the gut. We absorb some meat from our own body as we need to. The point I'm making right now is that these plant proteins give you adequate protein. Your body can utilize as much of that plant protein to make it biologically complete as it needs to build the amount of muscle tissue demanded by your workouts and the amount of IGF-1 you need for your life, but it's not going to start producing excess stuff you don't need. It only is able to make the amount you need. It makes the body make the perfect amount. Do you follow me? Because let's take a break from this for a minute, because what I'm saying here, we don't want to have excess of anything. We want to have the right amount. Even excess of nutrients can be bad. Now, here I am right here. And what if you calculated out with a scientific calorimeter that to maintain my perfect weight with the amount of exercise I regularly do, I need about, let's just say a guess, 1,600 calories a day. Now, what if I eat 1,650 calories a day? What if I just eat 50 calories more than my body needs? Well, 50 calories a day times 365 calories a year, that's a lot of calories. So it's 3,000 calories a pound. For every 100 days of overeating 50 calories, it's 5. In any case, that's some amount of pounds a year. That's like 3 pounds a year. Over 10 years, I gained 30 pounds. I took 20 years of my life and 50 calories extra. Just 50 calories extra, just that bite of a bagel. Just a quarter of a bagel extra a day. You took 20 years off your life. It's not the right time to laugh. Now, what if I ate 50 calories too little under my metabolic needs? Would instead of eating, I need 16, I eat 1550. Would I become too thin? Would my muscles waste away? Would I become anorexic? Would I weaken my bones? What would happen to me? What do you say? What? What? Yes. I would lose weight till I got to my most favorable weight for longevity, which I'm at right. I've been at this weight my whole life pretty much. And I wouldn't keep losing. My body would stop itself from losing weight because the metabolic rate would slow down. It would lower its body temperature. My body temperature would lower. My thyroid would lower a touch. My respiratory quotient would lower. That's the amount of calories lost with breathing would adjust itself to lose less calories with breathing. And overall, my body would conserve energy, so my muscle mass and my body weight would stay the same. And in doing so, it would stabilize my muscle mass and stabilize my bone mass with less activity, the osteoclasts and osteoblasts. So my bones and my muscles would stay stronger with aging because I moderately understood calories, so now I won't get osteoporosis or sarcopenia with aging, weakening the muscles or bones with aging. So now I'm more stable. Because my metabolic rate is slower. I'm aging slower because you're aging as much as your metabolic rate's going. So the less you eat, you're aging slower. But now, should I get in a car accident or catch pneumonia or something where I'm sick or I'm in bed for a week, I'm going to maintain more of my muscle and bone because my body has built it without so much turnover because my metabolic rate is favorable. So you follow what I'm saying right here? It's favorable to undershoot slightly. It's favorable to slow your metabolic rate down a little bit. The goal of living longer, or not the goal of living longer, the trick, the secret to living longer is to slow your metabolic rate down so you can eat less food and not get too thin. You don't pay as much money for food either. Because most Americans think the opposite. They think they got to keep eating all day in one constant eating binge, and the more they eat, and they got to keep their metabolic rate up so they can eat more food and not get fat. That's the formula for a shortened lifespan. I'm not trying to figure out some fad or gimmick or trick that you could speed up your metabolic rate so you eat more food. The goal is to slow down your metabolic rate so you can eat less food. So here, I'm going to fly through these pretty quickly now, because I think you're getting the idea that IGF-1 goes up, cancers go up, right? Studies, meta-analysis. More protein. Here's a study of 6,000 people, followed for 18 years. Those with higher protein intake, higher animal protein intake. This study compared people who ate 30% of calories from animal product compared to those eating 10% or less. A fourfold over an 18-year period. They started between the ages of 50 and 65 when they began the study, followed them for 18 years, and over the period of deaths that occurred over the 18-year period, 4 times as many deaths from cancer in the people eating more protein, animal protein. You got that? Pretty straightforward. We give studies more credence if they have large numbers of people, if they go on for many years, and if they look at hard endpoints like death, not just cholesterol or body weight or something, and give you a Twinkie diet, and you could lose weight on eating nothing but Twinkies because you're sick of eating Twinkies. You'll just eat 500 or 800 calories of Twinkies, and you lose weight, but that's not going to make you live a long time. You're still going to die young on the Twinkie diet if you're not overweight. So don't do it. We can look at one study after another. I'm going to flip through these pretty quickly. The fact that is, here's another study which had 44,000 people in it, tracked 40,000 women, tracking their death from cardiovascular disease. Those with more animal protein, they tracked every level of animal protein consumption from low amounts to 1 to high amounts with 20, and cardiovascular death went up with each index of increasing animal protein intake in the diet. You build up toxic metabolites from the junk food you eat, but you also build up toxic metabolites from the eating all these animal products, especially ammonia and urea, uric acid and nitrogenous waste, the extra proteinaceous waste the body has to get rid of because the extra carbohydrate you turn into fat, and the extra fat you turn into fat, the extra protein turns into poisons that have to be removed from the body, and you build up more toxins. And as you build up more toxins, when you stop eating food for a few hours, like stopping smoking for a few hours, got to run outside and have that cigarette, because you're going to feel withdrawal, and you're going to feel shaky and weak and headachy and feel really bad when you don't take that nicotine in, because when you're not taking in the nicotine and not smoking, your body tries to get rid of the nicotine. It tries to fix what's ever been broken. It tries to get rid of the toxins out of the body, and it's painful when the toxins come out. And when you're not digesting food is when you can detoxify the most effectively, and eating stops the detox process. So if you're having a caffeine headache, eat something. But the worse you feel, feeling worse means you're getting better. Feeling better means you're getting worse. The headache is the treatment. You try to suppress the headache with opiates and not caffeine and narcotics and ergotamines, whatever it is. Then you're pushing the toxins back in. You're saying, keep those toxins in, don't come out. I want to feel better, but then they're going to come out again down the road, and you're going to have a headache again. The more you use drugs to suppress a headache, the more you develop chronic headaches that are going to occur on a rebound basis. If you want to get rid of headaches permanently, you have to stop taking in the foods that cause the buildup of toxins. Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because most people feel ill and shaky because they feel that high when they're eating the high calories that rush into the bloodstream. Yes, the dopamine hitting the brain gives them a high like they snorted cocaine, or they flood the calories in real fast with the oils and the sugars. They want that rush from the cheese. But when they try to stop eating those foods, they feel shaky, they feel headachy, they feel weak, they feel lousy, right? They feel all these weakness, growling stomach, irritable, moody, and they want to eat again. They actually think these detox symptoms from their bad diet are hunger. They call these symptoms hunger. They're not hunger. Healthy people don't have these symptoms. They drive people to overeat because they have to keep eating excess calories just to feel okay. What I'm saying here, the anabolic phase is when you're digesting and chewing and eating and eating that and putting that food to work. And that halts detoxification. When digestion ceases, you enter the anabolic phase of the digestive cycle, and that's, I said that wrong. When you stop digesting, you enter the catabolic phase of the digestive cycle. And that, in the catabolic phase, that's where detoxification is enhanced. That's where the removal of metabolic waste products is enhanced. And I always say, the longer you live in the catabolic phase, the longer you live. You guys understand that, right? The longer you live in the catabolic phase, the longer you live your day not eating food in your mouth, the longer you're living. Keep putting food in your mouth all day long, you're shortening your lifespan. And the most important way you can use that technology to live longer is eat dinner earlier and go to sleep on an empty stomach. Eat a lighter dinner. More important than not, most important is having that 13-hour window at night. And the worst thing you can do is eat and go to bed on a full stomach and wake up in the middle of the night to eat some more because maybe you're hypoglycemic because your diet is so bad, you got to keep the food coming in all the time because all hypoglycemia means is a person who's eating a junky diet with too much animal protein, with too much nitrogenous waste products, and the body has to keep the food coming in all the time because they don't tolerate how bad they feel in the detox phase. And the worse you eat, the more you need more calories and you need to eat more frequently. If you don't feel well when you're not eating, then your diet is a junk food diet. So what I'm saying here is that right when you see the glucose curve went up, as the glucose comes back to normal again, comes back to baseline, people have to eat again. That started the catabolic phase. But if you're healthy, you feel nothing when you enter that catabolic phase and the glucose is at the lowest point. You feel just you're just living life. And the glycogen starts to be burned off. You don't even start to break into your fat supply. Your body lives on the glycogen that's stored in your liver and your muscle tissues. The body lives on the glycogen because your body turned the glucose in the bloodstream into glycogen, into fat and glycogen. And your body burns down the glycogen by turning it back to glucose again because your brain needs that constant supply of glucose for you to live. If your body has a significant glycogen reserve, it's not going to burn fat. It's going to take glycogen preferentially. It only starts burning fat more as the glycogen starts to go down. Most people, they burn off some glycogen, they eat again, and they just fill up the glycogen stores again. They're not going to ever reduce their fat mass on their body because they keep eating too frequently. You're never going to get the fat down. But then if you don't eat until you start to burn down your glycogen, then when you start to run out of glycogen, then you'll get real hunger. And real hunger is felt in the mouth and throat. It makes food taste great. It increases the pleasure of eating, and it increases your taste sensation. So most Americans go from one anabolic phase to another, eating too frequently and too much, whereas we know that the WHEAL study, the Women's Healthy Eating and Living study, and other studies show that the less frequently you eat and the longer the period at night you don't eat. This study showed a 36% reduction in breast cancer for those who didn't eat for 13 hours each night, and these women were not eating a healthy diet. They were eating a typical American diet. They just tried to eat dinner earlier, the same amount of food, same calories, same poor diet. They still had a 36% reduction in breast cancer just because they didn't eat for 13 hours at night. Pretty interesting, huh? Just that simple change. Just go to eat at dinner earlier. The path to true hunger. This extends your lifespan. Don't eat when you're not hungry. Don't snack unless it's true hunger. Don't eat till you feel full or stuffed. Don't eat a big dinner. Don't eat after dinner. And discontinue addictive substances, especially addictive food, like oil and sugar, which make you overeat and make dopamine released in the brain to drive you crazy wanting to eat more food. A Nutritarian eats a variety of high-nutrient plants, but a Nutritarian doesn't eat empty-calorie foods like sugar, white flour, processed foods, and fast food or oil. Here, so I'm saying to you right now that a piece of chicken is like a bagel. A piece of chicken is the same as a bagel. How come I'm saying a piece of chicken is the same as a bagel? I've asked you guys a million of these questions already. I got to go over here. Okay, how come a piece of chicken is like a bagel? I didn't think of that one. Thank you. Right. He said because they're both calorically dense but have no significant micronutrient load. They're both low in nutrients. That's one reason that I wanted to hear you say, but the other reason is they both drive hormones, unfavorable hormones that create cancer. The bagel drives insulin, and chicken drives IGF-1. Now, if you really want to create a sandwich to create cancer, most powerful cancer production, you put the chicken in the bagel and you eat them together. No, really, that's not a joke. That's like you have like the pizza, the cheese with the bread. You have the burger, the bread with the meat. You have the bagel with the melted cheese on top of the egg. You mix the animal protein with the refined carbohydrate, and boom, you created the perfect cancer creator package. What's that? The American diet. In the back, do you have any white flour bagels? Okay. So here's a study on longevity showing that cruciferous vegetables, green vegetables of 100,000 Chinese adults, show that when we tracked and recorded the amount of green vegetables they eat, the people who ate the most green vegetables lived the longest with no leveling of lifespan. In other words, the more they ate, the longer they lived. It didn't flatten out. With mushrooms, it flattens out, which means that mushrooms extend their lifespan, but once you get over 20 grams, the level goes flat. In other words, once you eat a certain amount of mushrooms, eating more mushrooms and more mushrooms and more mushrooms don't make you live longer. Just taking a certain amount of mushrooms every day made you live longer, but you don't have to keep eating more and more and more of them. With green vegetables, it's not like that. Green vegetables, the more you eat, the longer you live. So here's the studies on nuts and seeds and heart disease. Let's review this really quickly, is that all these studies, all the major studies, show a dramatic reduction in all cause of death, both cardiovascular death and cancer death, and all causes of death. Nuts and seeds increase lifespan. Nuts and seeds lower cholesterol. The more you eat 1 ounce to 2 ounces, your LDL decreases even more. The Seventh-day Adventist studies show that the longest lived Seventh-day Adventists were those people who ate nuts and seeds regularly. Even the vegans who did not eat nuts and seeds did not live as long as those who ate some animal products but still ate nuts and seeds. Even though the vegans who ate nuts and seeds lived the longest in the Seventh-day Adventist studies, but shorter than even the ones who ate some animal products were the ones who ate no nuts and seeds. Are you following that? Let's look at some of these other studies. Here's some major studies here. The first major study published in 2015, a meta-analysis of many different studies put together on cardiovascular death, heart disease death, and nuts and seeds, with more than 44,000 deaths, showed almost a 40% decrease in heart attack and stroke mortality from people eating nuts and seeds more than 3 times a week compared to those not eating it, or 1 serving a day compared to those not eating 1 serving a day. Nuts and seeds were the most protective food. Let's look at this recent study. Came out 2018, 1 month ago. Here's a new study from the Adventist Health Study Cohort 2. They tracked that those with the highest intake of nuts and seeds had a 40% lower death rate compared to the group with the lowest intake of nuts and seeds. That showed that even people who weren't eating a lot of animal products, who were having a relatively plant-heavy, plant-based diet, the difference between those eating nuts and seeds but those who didn't was an incredibly different potential for lifespan. 40% lower death rate over the time of that study. Amazing, right? And here's the Prevamid study with comparing olive oil to nuts and seeds, showing when they took people off of butter and they put them on olive oil, more olive oil means lower death rate from heart disease. The heart attack deaths dropped by 10% when they ate more olive oil. But when they took them off the olive oil and they had them eat more nuts and seeds, then the heart attack rates dropped by 60%. Sure, olive oil is better than butter, but that doesn't make it a health food. We don't want to duplicate what goes on in the Mediterranean countries that have 10% lower heart attack rate. We want to have a 100% lower heart attack rate, not 10% lower heart attack rate. We want to wipe out heart attacks. It's not a Mediterranean diet. It's a Nutritarian diet that wipes out heart disease. More greens, more beans, more nuts and seeds means a dramatic lowering of the glycemic effect of your diet and an improvement in diabetic and cardiovascular parameters, and diabetes goes away. The weight pours off your body. You get to your ideal weight. Nobody has high blood pressure or high cholesterol or almost nobody. Very rare. And you get well. It's therapeutically effective. The pyramid has what at the bottom? Vegetables. Beans and fruits and whole grains. Yeah, but vegetables are mostly what you eat. You get rid of the junk food and the animal products and the oils. Now, the problem is some of these popular vegan diets from these vegan gurus are recommending people not eat nuts and seeds. And their diet, because it's so carbohydrate heavy, so potato and rice heavy, like a macrobiotic diet or some of these diets, that it's not good for growing children or for the elderly because the The ability to absorb protein goes down as we go over the age of 80 to 90. And so you need adequate protein in your diet. A Nutritarian diet, with the use of greens and beans and seeds, gives you plenty of plant protein. But some of these diets that are afraid to eat any fat and afraid to eat nuts and seeds are just irresponsible and dangerous because they potentiate the risk for depression and dementia because their fatty acid is inadequate. So we know in the Women's Health Initiative memory study and other studies that shrinkage of the brain occurs when the DHA, when the omega-3 index drops below 4. Let me say that, explain that to you. That we need EPA and DHA for the brain. DHA and EPA are commonly called fish oil. We need some of those fish oils for the brain. You don't have to get them from fish. The body makes it itself. Or we can take an algae form of the oil. But some people don't make it as well as others. So we can't just make a statement like at a vegan diet, you just need to take B12. Because we don't know if that's true or not. Because a lot of people get in trouble on a vegan diet because their DHA level could be too low, which could promote shrinkage of the brain and depression. And shrinkage of the brain results in dementia. And once your brain shrinks, you're not growing a new brain back again. It's too late. You can't wait till the damage occurs. What I'm saying right now is that when you have an omega-3 index below 4, you're at risk of brain shrinkage and dementia. And here's a study we did on 166 vegans who were not supplementing with DHA, and we found that about a third of them were significantly deficient. Their omega-3 index was below 3. That means these people are at risk of getting dementia. The point I'm making right now is that there are some vegan gurus who are being irresponsible, taking risks with with postpartum depression, with DHA insufficiency, and with their clients developing dementia. We have to err on the side of caution and make sure that you're on a vegan diet, you have adequate DHA exposure, or you take a blood test to make sure you're not one of those people whose levels are low. We just don't want to take chances with people's lives. So before I conclude, let me go on through 2 studies that were performed on a Nutritarian diet. Because on a Nutritarian diet, which I use that term Nutritarian, it means designed with a full portfolio of high nutrient foods we're supposed to eat as humans, it dropped LDL cholesterol more powerful than statin drugs. And it wiped out oxidized LDL, which is even with 2 weeks, oxidized LDL was wiped out. And on a Nutritarian diet, it dropped systolic blood pressure in 6 months' time 26 points, more than any other study in human history. More than the DASH diet, low-sodium DASH dropped 11 points, which is great, but this dropped to 26 points while the medications were taken away. The prescription here is clear. Eat your beans in a salad. Eat at least 3 fresh fruits a day. Eat at least an ounce of nuts and seeds a day. Eat at least 1 big salad a day. How many people eat 1 giant salad as a main dish at least once a day? Not many of you. Hope you're going to start. You all raised your hand when I said you were, how many people are not going to have a heart attack or a stroke and protect themselves? You all raised your hand up. But now only about a third of you raised your hand. So does that mean that all of you are going to start eating a salad every day? Okay. And a large portion of steamed greens and some mushrooms and onions too, right? Because the oak and some of those blue zones, they live a long time. The Seventh-day Adventists are a blue zone where people live a long time, a lot of centenarians there. But the Dr.fuhrman Nutritarians live the longest. What's so funny? Let's look at some of these people. But we're not just talking about living longer. We're talking about enjoying the quality of your later years. Because the average Americans, their healthy life expectancy decreases as they live longer. They have a poor quality life as they live longer. They're starting to get sick. But a Nutritarian has a great quality of life in their 70s and 80s. They're still enjoying their full mental and physical faculties. Here's Tom Deck from Rochester. Look at him. When he was 50 years old, he was going to lose his leg from an amputation from diabetes and going into kidney failure. Found a Nutritarian diet, lost about 80 pounds, and got rid of his diabetes and saved his leg. No longer needed a foot amputation with all those infections. Let's look at Emily, who lost 100 pounds in 1 year. Looks a lot better when she dropped 100 pounds. Let's look at the aging. Let's look at her skin on her face 1 year later. Look at how her face looks differently. Doesn't even look like the same person. Looks like she's aging backwards, right? She was aging backwards. And you can see how those carotenoids color your skin. You could look at my skin color. I could look at your skin color, and I can tell your diet just from looking at your skin. I could look at your skin and go, you're at high risk of cancer because your skin is pale and fleshy and pink. Should have that orange tinge. You know, if you're eating all the vegetables, you should see them right in your skin. You could see it in her face. You see the color. Here, Scott lost 300 pounds on a Nutritarian diet, more than 300 pounds. He thought he finished losing weight once he got to 182. He said, I lost enough. But you know what happened over the next 5 years? He dropped another 6 or 7 pounds. He got to like 175 was his final weight. He wasn't trying to lose more weight. He was just on this diet for the rest of his life. He said, it's not a diet. It's not about a goal weight. It's about doing what's healthy for my body, and the results follow naturally. There's John Pelikowski. He's the guy on the right. The guy on the left. I don't know who that guy on the right is. But here's the thing. John's been my patient for all these years. In 1994, he came to me at the age of 72 with triple vessel disease. His cardiologist told him he needed a stent placed urgently. I said, John, a stent is going to take away your health. You're going to put a foreign body in your heart. I can get you better. Give me just a few months of your life. You're not having a heart attack. This is not an urgent procedure. You'll go back to your cardiologist in 3 months. Follow my program. That was back in the 1990s. I hadn't written my first book. Nobody knew what I was into. They just thought I was some crazy doctor. Right? And it was hard for me to convince people back then. But he listened to me. He went back to the doctor 3 months later, and the cardiologist said, I've never seen a person reverse their heart disease like this. And his blood pressure medications come off. He didn't need blood pressure medications anymore. His stress test improved so much, the cardiologist agreed. You don't need angioplasty anymore. Just keep doing what Dr. Fuhrman is doing for you. It's incredible. Of course, the cardiologist never saw anything like that before. They don't put people on healthy diets. They just give them drugs. They never ever see a person get better. But the point of this study is that here he is in 2018 at the age of 97. He's dead. No, I'm just kidding. He's in great health. He's chopping wood. He's taking care of his garden. He's having a good, active life at 97. He would have, and of course he still has normal blood pressure. The point I'm making is aging didn't raise his blood pressure. His blood pressure got lower as he aged. It's the day in and day out of eating the wrong foods that make it seem like aging makes your blood pressure get worse. Are you following this? Water runs off the waterfall and hits the rock. The rock didn't age. It split in two from the water hitting it day after day. High blood pressure is not natural. The Catawba study showed the Catawba Island off the coast of Papua New Guinea, those people have no high blood pressure. They eat natural foods. They have no heart disease or strokes in that population or in their ancestry. They couldn't even track or find anybody ever thinking of anybody who had a heart attack or a stroke. It's unnatural. Here's Steve and Tara. You see where it says 226 and 447 on top of that slide? That means that Tara weighed 226 and Steve weighed 447. 1 year later, she dropped 80 pounds. He dropped 220 pounds in that first year. He dropped 220 pounds in 1 year. It's not a typo. Their daughter, Chloe, lost 32 pounds. She got rid of her, of course, Tara got rid of her depression, her allergies, her osteoarthritis. Steve got rid of his diabetes, his sleep apnea, his heart disease, his chest pain. Their life is completely started anew. It's like a fresh new life, like they've taken 40 years off their life. And you know who's really incredibly thrilled about this? Really, really thrilled? The dog. Look. He's finally got some room to sit in the car. I like that joke too. You know, the jokes are still funny if I tell them 100 times, right? All right, guys. So I devote my career, this is so much fun and so rewarding, to motivate, to educate and motivate people to take better care of their health. Because I'm doing this as a career. And you wouldn't believe the thousands of emails I get of people telling me I saved their life. I can't be walking in the airport where somebody doesn't come over to me and grab me and say, you saved my mother's life or something. Or I'm working in a drugstore, getting some cotton balls for my daughter, and the person's grabbing me and saying, are you Dr. Fuhrman? You saved my father's life. Something like that. It's amazing. Those are the superpowers I want you to have. I want you guys to put the oxygen mask on yourself. I want you to learn this stuff so you can reach out and help me help people. This is tremendously rewarding. It's better than winning the Olympics. You understand what I'm saying, right? When you win the Olympics, you feel thrilled about all the hard work you put in and what you accomplished, but of course it doesn't keep going on and on and on for the rest of your life. This keeps going on and on and on. You feel good about yourself and it keeps going because you can continue to have good effects on other people, not just create glory for yourself, right? So it's really fun, At drfuhrman.com is my website. I give people advice from all over the world there. I have a members center where people join from other countries. They ask me questions. I help them, guide them. I help them tell them, don't take that drug. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't listen to your doctor. You know, I got to give people advice because what they get from doctors is like the more drugs, the better. Go to a doctor, you just get more medications, and the medications, in conjunction with the fast food and the processed food and the junk food and the restaurants, make things worse because the medications give people the implicit permission to it's okay to just eating what they're eating. They can look, their blood pressure looks better, their blood glucose looks better, their cholesterol looks better. They can be eating the same diet. They think they're okay because their numbers look better. It's a scam. Without the medications, the people are much better off because then people would have to change their diet and change their lifestyle and lose weight and eat healthy. They have to get their blood pressure. The medications allow them to stay overweight, allow them to keep eating wrong. They don't have to get well now. And what they do, they just keep getting worse, and getting worse on the medications. The medications themselves are carcinogenic. A lot of them create cancer, are dangerous themselves besides that. I've written a lot of books. I have some books here for you, including my newest book, Fast Food Genocide. Hope you got a lot out of this tonight. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.